Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. It is great to be here with Mike Ellis, our Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, Nolan Dick, our Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous and Rural Policing, Jack Van Rijn, Mayor of Coaldale, and Sat Parhar, a veteran Calgary police officer. We promise to improve policing in the province so that it works better on the streets and behind the scenes. And we did that because Albertans deserve to feel safe no matter where they live. And because Ottawa has indicated that it's rethinking the RCMP's responsibilities and may change them once the current police services agreements end in 2032. So I'm pleased to say that we have taken some major steps to deliver on our promise. We have formally created the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service to be headquartered right here in Calgary. And to be clear about its intended purpose, the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service is not meant to replace the RCMP or any other police service. It will work alongside existing branches of law enforcement to fill gaps and ensure that resources are used efficiently. And just like most other police services in the province, it'll be run separately from the government with civilian oversight. Today, roughly 80% of Albertans are already served by local non-RCMP municipal police services, such as in Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, as well as the recently established police service in Grande Prairie, along with others. And I'm also happy to announce that we are appointing Sat Parhar as Chief of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. Chief Parhar spent more than 25 years with the Calgary Police Service. Yeah! He's also done frontline policing in every corner of this city. He rose through the organization to reach the rank of Deputy Chief, and he's won quite a few distinctions over the course of his career. Chief Parhar has the right mix of experience and leadership to steer this new agency, and his first responsibilities will be recruiting an executive team as well as building connections with the existing network of Alberta law enforcement organizations. Threats to public safety are always shifting, and the federal government could decide to redirect the RCMP away from contract policing. So Alberta's government is preparing and acting instead of waiting and reacting. Our goal is to put solutions in place before serious challenges develop. And now I'd like to ask Minister Mike Ellis to share a few more details about our approach and Alberta's newest law enforcement agency.
Well, wonderful. Thank you very much, Premier Smith, and of course, good afternoon to everyone. What a very exciting day, and thank you all for being here. I also like to thank the Mayor of Coaldale for being here, as well as the Deputy Mayor of Hardisty, who is also here today, my colleague Nolan Dick, who of course has come on down from Grande Prairie as the Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous and Rural Policing, and I know Mayor Clayton is here, also from Grande Prairie as well. I, of course, want to thank who's also part of the independent agency board. I think that all the board members that are also here today who did a fantastic job in the search for this new chief. Also want to thank very special guests, Rick Hansen and Robin Van Gassel, for also being here on this very monumental day. It certainly is a pleasure to be here in Calgary and to talk about how Alberta is preparing for the future of policing and how we're making sure that our communities are safe, supported, and of course well served, which is at the heart of public safety and is a fundamental responsibility of any government. So today, as the Premier already indicated, we are very proud to announce two important milestones in our work to build the independent agency police service as another policing option for Alberta municipalities. And first, Alberta's government has formally established the independent agency police service through regulation, and this means that the service has now been created an independent Crown corporation with the passing of Bill 49, and the head office, of course, will be located right here in Calgary. And second, of course, we're also pleased to again welcome the new Alberta Sheriff's Police Service and our new Chief, Sat Parhar, who's going to serve as the service's new Chief of Police. Chief Parhar, as the Premier indicated, sir, has spent more than 25 years of policing experience in senior leadership roles within the Calgary Police Service, and of course most recently served as a Deputy Chief. He has a deep knowledge of Alberta's public safety landscape. His strong operational expertise, proven leadership makes him an ideal person to lead the service through the formative stages as it brings its work to keeping Albertans and their communities safe. As chief, he's going to be responsible for building out the service's leadership team, guiding the development and recruitment of training and operational standards, and all of which will shape the new service as it moves towards full readiness. The selection process for the new chief was led independently by the IAPS Oversight Board, who are again here today, and I thank them for all the work that they did. The board focused on identifying experienced leaders with the right skill set and vision to guide the IAPS, and many candidates were recommended and considered from all over Canada. After careful evaluation, the board recommended Chief Parhar as the right choice, and of course I certainly support their recommendation. Now let me be clear, the purpose of the IAPS is to strengthen local policing capacity throughout our province. The IAPS will augment and support all law enforcement in Alberta and will provide municipalities with an alternative choice. Right now, it's about making sure that Alberta has the resources and flexibility to meet increasing demands and improve public safety, especially in rural and remote communities. And right now, it's about supporting existing law enforcement. And it's about ensuring that every Albertan, no matter where they live, if somebody calls 911, we expect somebody to show up to that call, and I do not care what that uniform is. We know that all police services do incredible work every day to protect Albertans, and the IPS is being created to help reinforce and strengthen their efforts. But we also know that the demand on those services are increasing. So for example, response times and high vacancy rates are jeopardizing public safety, especially in rural Alberta. Communities are asking for more support, and we're listening. This is why we recently passed Bill 49, offering an alternative policing option to municipalities through the Independent Police Agency to improve service and address community safety concerns. Over time, the IAPS will be able to provide targeted support, working closely with police services and municipal and First Nations leaders to identify where additional resources are needed and respond accordingly. As previously announced with the Public Safety Statutes Amendment Act in 2024, the Alberta Sheriffs were already performing police-like functions to have a path to becoming fully qualified police officers. Unlike police, sheriffs do not currently operate under civilian oversight, and transferring these duties to a police service will bring them in line with accountability standards already in place for all other police services in Alberta. This transition will help reinforce Alberta's broader law enforcement system while ensuring consistency, transparency, and of course trust. Of course, we're also paying close attention to developments at the national level. Earlier this year, the federal government released a white paper proposing that the RCMP would gradually withdraw from contract policing. The report, titled A Police Vision for Canada, Modernizing the RCMP, states that the federal government should be committed to working closely with the provinces to support a transition away from contract policing. It reports that rising costs, growing vacancies, structural staff shortages within the RCMP are challenges for communities right across Canada. This problem is not unique to Alberta. The Government of Canada's vision is to transform the RCMP into a federal policing organization focused on the most serious crimes affecting Canadians. And the expiration of the police service agreements in 2032 prevents the first opportunity to implement the phase of policing in Canada. These are not my words. This is what the report from Public Safety Canada has stated. It would be negligent, of course, on my part if we did not explore an alternative to the RCMP, which was voiced by the former Prime Minister. The former Prime Minister said that the government should work with the territorial leaders and Indigenous partners to define a new policing model to support fair access to adequate and effective policing services that reflect the unique needs and circumstances. Alberta must be proactive, and that's what we are doing here today. We continue to make substantive investments in the RCMP. For example, in 2025-26, Alberta's government provided $380.5 million for the provincial police service agreement. That's an increase of $3.8 million from 24-25. We also invested an additional $20.9 million in the 2024 budget to increase the RCMP's capacity. Now, despite this increase in funding and ongoing conversations with the federal government, many of the additional positions, unfortunately, have remained unfilled. This is not about a lack of money being provided to the RCMP. This is simply about this is simply not about writing a blank check to the RCMP. Current vacancy rates are nearly 20% right across the province, and those numbers are consistent right across Canada. This is demonstrated by the fact that the province currently pays roughly $16 million for unfilled positions in Alberta, and that is for services that we do not get. So let me say this once again. I have heard horror stories right across rural Alberta when it comes to shortages within detachments. I've spoken to First Nations, Métis communities who have complained about their current contract service provider and the lack of police presence in their communities. With that being said, we need to be ready for the future of policing in Alberta, and the creation of the new Alberta Sheriff's Police Service is part of that readiness as we add more boots on the ground, because officer presence matters. Also, it's part of a broader effort to ensure that Alberta's police system is strong, it's responsive, and it's future-focused. As Chief Parhar begins his work and as the agency starts to take shape, we'll remain focused on what matters most, keeping up and keeping Albertans safe, and supporting our existing policing partners, and making sure that no matter what comes next, Alberta is ready to lead. So thank you to the IAPS Oversight Board, the Recruitment Committee, and everyone who helped get us to this point. And most of all, I want to recognize and congratulate Chief Parhar for his willingness to take on this monumental and important role. We're confident in your leadership, and we look forward to the work ahead. I would like now to invite Chief Parhar to take the podium and say a few words. Thank you.
Wow, this is a bit humbling, standing here in front of everybody. And before I start, I just want to say thank you to Premier Smith and Minister Ellis for everything they've done for this province. I think they've done some tremendous work. I also am very humbled as I sit in this audience and I look at the audience and I look at, there's a man right over there by the name of Rick Hansen, Chief Rick Hansen. I know the burden of a chief. I know the responsibility of a chief. And I think it's important that I don't take this lightly. I take this with lots of responsibility. And I wanted to just say that right off the start. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why, but I am. Almost 30 years of policing, and I'm nervous. So I want to begin by saying how honored I am to be appointed as the inaugural chief of the new independent agency police service. It's a tremendous responsibility and opportunity to help build something brand new, something forward-looking, something that reflects the needs and values of Albertans. As many of you know, I spent more than 25 years in policing. Like so many officers, I started on the front lines, learned from my colleagues, responded to calls, experienced the reality of police firsthand, and I made some mistakes. I still remember those early days engaging with people in crisis and realizing that sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is to show up and listen. Those early experiences shaped how I approach policing ever since. With empathy, humility, and deep respect for the trust of Albertans and keeping them safe. The same mindset will guide me in this new role. I also know that policing has become much more complex. The pressures placed on officers to meet the diverse needs of community can be overwhelming. It's different from when I first started. This requires commitment and strong leadership. I know that this support will lead to the best outcomes for all communities we are part of and the communities we serve. This is a rare opportunity for Alberta to build a modern, professional police service from the ground up. One that works alongside existing law enforcement partners, supports our communities, and helps strengthen public safety across the province. My commitment is to lead with integrity, to listen carefully, and to build a service that's ready to serve every part of Alberta. From rural and urban to Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, and from communities in the far north that stretch all the way down to the Alberta and the U.S. border. In the months ahead, I will be focused on several priorities: assembling a strong and experienced executive team, developing clear standards for recruitment, training, and accountability, and building the operational foundation needed to deliver safe, effective policing that Albertans can count on. I do know that public trust is not a given. It's something we earn through consistent, principled service every day. While we are still in the early stages, I can say with confidence that we are building a police service that reflects Alberta, its people, its communities, and its future. To everyone who helped bring us to this point, the Oversight Board, government partners, and public safety colleagues, thank you. And to Albertans, I look forward to earning your trust and working together as we build this service. With that, I'd like to welcome the Mayor of Coaldale, Jack Van Ryn, to the podium.
Good afternoon. I want to begin by sincerely thanking Premier Smith, Minister Ellis, and the Government of Alberta for inviting myself and members of my council that are with me here today. It is an honor to stand alongside you for what I believe is a significant and historic step forward for policing in Alberta. In Coaldale, we have been privileged to have an exceptional group of RCMP officers serving on the front lines of our community. Their professionalism, dedication, and commitment to public safety are second to none. Our residents deeply value the work that they do. But while we've been fortunate to have outstanding officers, the framework under which our policing services has been delivered has for many years been anything but fair. Coaldale has been uniquely and unfairly positioned as the only municipality in all of Canada under 15,000 residents required to pay the full cost of RCMP policing. Other communities of our size continue to receive significant subsidies. This has placed an unfair financial burden on our municipality for reasons that have never been justifiable. That is why today's announcement is so important, because it speaks to what true provincial leadership looks like. For several years now, Minister Ellis and Premier Smith have listened to municipalities like ours. They've recognized that waiting on Ottawa to fix these long-standing inequities is no longer an option. And when it became clear that the federal government wasn't going to act, Alberta stepped up. On behalf of Coaldale Town Council, I want to publicly express our gratitude to the Government of Alberta for providing our town with much-needed grant support to help offset these policing costs, and for taking bold steps to give municipalities a real choice in how policing is delivered going forward. The creation of the independent Alberta Police Services represents exactly that, a choice communities have by selecting a policing model that reflects local needs, respects fiscal realities, and ensures long-term stability, particularly as the future of the RCMP's municipal policing role across Canada becomes increasingly uncertain. Today's announcement marks the beginning of an important new chapter. And while there is still work ahead, Coaldale stands ready to engage in discussions with Chief Parhar to explore what this new provincial policing model can offer our community. Premier Smith, Minister Ellis, thank you again for your leadership, for ensuring that municipalities like Coaldale have a true seat at the table as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers. We'll now enter our media Q&A portion of the press conference. We'll be taking one question, one follow-up. Please make sure to mention your name and outlet before your question. We'll start off here at the mic in the room before moving online to take some questions. Go ahead first at the mic.
Hi, Matt Skase for the Canadian Press. For the Premier, today Emily Scott Sinclair and Peter Guthrie said they're looking to relaunch the Alberta PC Party. What's your reaction to that news, and are you concerned at all about either bleeding support from your base or potential floor crossing, something of the like?
Well, elections law makes it clear that new parties can't use the name of the former legacy parties of the UCP. And the reason for that is to avoid confusion with voters. So we expect the law to be followed, and we're going to be following up with Elections Alberta accordingly. But generally speaking, I mean, this is a province where there's always new parties forming, and if they can put forward do so in a legal way, then I think that always is a positive to be able to have lots of options. It's good for democracy.
Shifting gears a bit, will you be signing or endorsing Thomas Lukaszik's petition for Alberta to declare its official policy to remain in Canada, and why or why not?
I'm going to let the various processes play out. I understand that the Chief Electoral Officer affirmed the question that had been put forward by Mr. Lukaszik, and so we'll see if he's able to get the requisite number of signatures. I gather he submitted it under the old rules, so I think he needs 293,000 signatures, so I'll wait and see if he's able to accomplish that.
Good afternoon, Premier. Hi, it's Jen from the Western Standard. So about the Fox Cree Nation LNG project, it's been approved. So what are your thoughts on that? And is this the type of project that you were hoping to see from Ottawa through the Bill C5? And is it a concession to the policies that you put forward in request?
I'm hoping for a new relationship with Ottawa. There's a range of things that we're concerned about. I think that the issue around LNG export is one where it's very clear that not only do we get local benefit, not only with Indigenous partners is there Indigenous benefit, but it also reduces emissions globally if we can replace higher emissions fuels. So it makes no sense then to have things like the net zero power grid regulations, because we can't on the one hand be saying let's celebrate the export of LNG to reduce emissions globally and then punishing those, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan, who want to use natural gas for our home heating as well as for our electricity. So there's still 9 bad policies that we think are interfering with the investment climate, and we're going to continue working with the federal government to see those substantially revised or repealed.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up is more relevant to the announcement made today. So having a provincial police force, is that one step towards making it more conducive for Alberta independence? And how does that impact national collaborative projects? Like I know that your government has discussed working with Ottawa on things like human trafficking. So how will that look in the future?
I would say that what this is about is getting good policing for those areas that are currently being policed by the RCMP. As we mentioned, there's 80% of people who already have a local police service, a municipal force, but we have vacancies that have resulted in a delay in response time, sometimes for days, sometimes issues not getting followed up on at all. And that's not delivering good policing. That's what this is about, is to fill some of those gaps, which we've already done. We have a scan force under the sheriffs, which shuts down drug houses. We've got a surveillance team. We've got a fugitive apprehension team. We've got a border security team. And many of those entities work hand in glove with Alert, with municipal forces, and even with the RCMP. I think that I'm just mindful that the federal government issued a white paper saying that they think that the role of the RCMP should change. And so that means that we've got to ensure that we don't have any gaps. That's what this is about, is making sure our rural communities get the response time that they deserve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tyson Fedora with CTV, either for the Premier or Minister Ellis. Maybe just kind of, if you're able to lay this out, this next process. We have the chief here today of this new agency, but what can Albertans expect over the next little bit when it comes to the process of unraveling this and the costs associated with doing so? Are you waiting until 2032 to have this fully operational once that contract policing is done with the RCMP, or are you expecting to get this underway maybe the next 6 months to the next year?
Yeah, so Chief Parhar is going to be able to engage in conversations, no different than what is precisely why we have the Mayor of Coaldale here and the Deputy Mayor of Hardisty here. You know, as I've indicated before, we've had over 30 municipalities across the province that took out that police transition grant, that we're looking at something an alternative to what they currently have right now as far as the police of jurisdiction. And so Chief Parhar is going to be able to engage in those conversations. There is a bit of a we'll call it, I won't get into great details, but there is a labor component of this that we're going to be working out. But I'm fully optimistic that within the next several months that we should be able to work this out. And I know everyone was asking, but when can I see police officers? I can't give you an exact date on that, but I can tell you that we've had certainly expressions of interest from a lot of retired police officers. And I don't want to make it sound like the retired police officers are in any way not capable of doing their duties. Some have retired at the age of 45 and you know, probably have a good another 15, 20 years left in them, to be honest with you. And then also looking at the experienced officer program, and then also looking at the recruiting. As I've said very much, we are not an arm of the state. We're going to be an extension and reflection of the communities that we serve. And Chief Parhar will be going out in the communities, talking with not just municipal leaders, but I've probably had well over 30 First Nations communities that are looking for something other than what they currently have. One community up in Treaty 8 has expressed interest that they might be wanting to use the Alberta Sheriffs as their police of jurisdiction.
And let me just add that we have, I think, over 2,000 sheriffs that are currently categorized as peace officers. They do prisoner transport, they do courts, and they do some of the specialized services I had mentioned. My understanding from Mike is that about 650 of them are already trained up to a level where they can be, have this new categorization of police. And then on top of that, all the recruitment that Mike is talking about. And then any municipality who would like us to set up a sheriff's detachment, this is the answer. Yes, we're happy to work with you. So we already have a couple of expressions of interest, as Mike had mentioned, of municipalities that want a sheriff's detachment. And so we can start now. We're not waiting. We want to make sure that everybody feels that they've got the policing that they need close to home. And if sheriffs are one of the options that they want to pursue, we're happy to work with them on it.
And just a quick follow-up, and I respect the fact that there are some communities here who are in support of this, but as you know, there are a few rural municipalities across this province that are dead set against this. What's the message today to them to say this is the way this province will be moving forward?
Well, I think the message is that we're making it a very municipally led process. We have from the beginning. It's part of the reason why Grand Prairie, when they took the policing grant out and they looked at their approach, they realized they could either save millions of dollars by developing their own municipal force, or what they've actually chosen to do is doubled the complement of officers. They're going to have 110 officers when they're fully implemented. I've spoken recently with the mayor up there, who has said that they're really keen to be able to have the local priorities again set locally. And that they're quite keen about the impact it's going to have. So I would just say that we've given grants to a number of different municipalities so that they can have a look, and I would imagine that those will be the ones that are contacting us. We just have to be prepared. If the federal government makes a decision to move away from contract policing, we don't want there to be a gap, and so we're ensuring that there isn't going to be a gap.
Chris Rijn, Cross Border Network. How do you ensure that there is no gap? Because Minister Ellis and yourself both talked about the gaps that are currently within the RCMP. How do you have faith that if you transition to a sheriff's detachment in municipalities, they will be fully staffed 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Because I'm talking to mayors and they're saying, we don't have faith in the RCMP now. How can we have faith in an independent sheriff's department with the potential same issues?
Let me start by just giving one proof point, and then I'll let Mike take it from there. When Grand Prairie went out as a call for resumes, they had 200 people apply for the positions that they have available. There are all kinds of reasons that people would rather apply to work for a local force where they know that they're not going to get redeployed to some other part of the country. So I would say that for our purposes, I think that just the demonstration that when these kinds of calls for resumes go out, that there's a huge enthusiasm for people to apply for the jobs. There may be other reasons why people want to apply for the RCMP. Maybe they want to be redeployed elsewhere. But I would say that we feel pretty confident, based on some of the experience we've had with those forces that are transitioning, that we're going to get a lot of people interested in putting their names forward. Mike?
I'll be quick. The answer is very, very nuanced, but I think, Premier, you touched on it. Stability, right? I mean, this is why we saw officers who were in the RCMP transition to become Grand Prairie Police Service members, because they love the community. They didn't want to go anywhere else. And we're seeing that expressions of interest in other jurisdictions where a detachment is being considered right now. So I think on a very high level, just providing that stability. But look, recruiting is going to be a top priority. I can say right now, with the leadership of Chief Parhar, with the support of a provincial government and Premier Smith, and of course myself, we have a lot of people that want to become police officers, and I'm very excited about that, and how we can get them in the Alberta Sheriffs or any police service in this province. We're going to make sure we do that.
How do you ensure that the urban municipalities work with their rural municipality leaders, whether it be Reeves? We talk about Coaldale, Lethbridge County surrounds them. if Coaldale moves away to an independent or a municipal police force, how does Lethbridge County offset that potential loss in RCMP detachment in Coaldale that could respond to accidents or criminal activity in Lethbridge County?
I mean, everything we're trying to do is to increase the number of boots on the ground. That's what we're aiming to do, and it's because of the vacancies that we have seen that have chronically gone unfilled and created those gaps. That's part of the reason why we're stepping in here. I would say we've had a number of opportunities, and Mike, you can come and answer as well. We've had a number of opportunities to see our sheriffs working collaboratively with other services. The best example of collaboration was probably in Edmonton. We did have a collaboration in Calgary that might not have been quite as successful. We learned a few things from that. But we also have our SCAN team, which is a prime example of how a dedicated sheriff's unit has been able to work in communities, embedded with the agency that is representing that community to do the surveillance they need to shut down those drug houses. And we are probably doing a couple every single week. Fugitive apprehension is another one. You have to be able to work across different jurisdictions, and the sheriffs are the perfect unit to do that. The border security as well, that has to be able to coordinate with the agencies that are on the ground there. So I think over the past 2.5 years, or 2 years, has it been 2.5? Yeah. About 2.5 years that Mike has been leading this file, I think we've had a number of opportunities to work through some of those issues, and now we're just going to be able to ensure that we have more officers. Did you want to add?
I think that's a great answer, Premier, and we have already, as the Alberta Sheriffs, already been collaboratively working with police jurisdictions right across Canada, quite frankly, especially with the SCAN teams and fugitive apprehension teams and surveillance, and especially with doing the border interdiction teams. But take the sheriffs out of the picture for the moment. We have cameras. We have Tabor. They have their own police services. They work collaboratively with the police of jurisdiction outside of Camrose and Tabor, and it works quite effectively.
Thank you. We have time for a few more questions. We'll take another one from the mic and then try to get to the phones.
I love these cool days.
Woo! Scorcher.
I'm not sweating because this question is so hot, but it is a bit of a hot potato. Let's go back and do a little history, Premier, that you know all about. Let's go back a decade, 2015, two conservative parties competing against each other, splitting the conservative vote, and surprise, surprise, the NDP win the election. Now we have a group that's a small group that's come forward that wants to revive one of those two parties. So we'll have a United Conservative Party mostly, and then a Progressive Conservative Party of whatever dimension that will look like. Surely you, as the person who took over the leadership of the United Conservative Party from a person who pushed to have a United Conservative Party because of what we talked about a decade ago, what are your thoughts on the fact that we don't know where this is going, but if it's successful, we're going to go back to 2 instead of 1?
Well, as I mentioned, it's in elections law. It was my predecessor who passed that, saying that the name of the former legacy parties of the UCP could not be registered as new parties, and that is so that we do not have confusion for voters. And so we're going to raise that with the elections officials and remind them that that's what the law says, and we would expect that the law will be followed. What I would say is that we have always had multiple parties on the ballot. Even last time around, if you go and look at the number of parties that were on the ballot, I think there were 4 or 5 or 6 different conservative parties that were listed there. And I think our success demonstrated that people like the United Conservative Party. They like what we stand for. They like what we're doing. They want to vote for us. They've been voting. They've supported us in record numbers. We've had the highest attendance and highest revenue-generating leaders' dinners this year. We are out fundraising the opposition NDP, I think, by 3 to 1. So I feel like those are the measures that I am looking at, and we'll be prepared to make our case in the next election, no matter who ends up being on the ballot.
Well, these two people were part of your caucus, and now they aren't, and we won't relitigate that. And another person who came in the news was a deputy premier who kind of disappeared off the scene after the UCP became the UCP. Do you think this is helpful to the idea of having a united conservative movement to have another progressive, to have another party that in whatever form calls itself conservative?
Well, as you know, I mean, I had a long history with both parties. I was the campus club president of the Progressive Conservatives back in 92, 93, and I also was the leader of the Wild Rose Party. And we saw what happened. We saw that when the movement splits, the NDP win. And I think that that's where the majority of Conservative voters are, is that they realize that we have two cultures that we brought together under a single umbrella, and we talk about the things that we can agree on, and we move forward with policies that get the consensus of the majority of the public. We're going to continue doing that. And I think it's that approach that we take that is going to make the case to Albertans that they should stay supporting the United Conservative Party. And I'll leave it to others to argue their case. But I think the approach that we've taken has demonstrated success, and I'm expecting it to the next election too.
Thanks, Rick. We'll take one more quick question from the mic here, and then one from the phones, and that's all the time we'll have.
Skylar Peters from Global. If I could ask the question of Chief Parhar, perhaps. I know he mentioned some of the priorities over the next couple of months. Chief, when it comes to recruitment and retention, I can appreciate the answer that the Premier and the Minister gave about stability certainly being a factor for some of your potential officers. But what else are you looking at to ensure that this new service is competitive or perhaps the number one landing spot for your potential officers?
What I've realized in 30 years of policing is that most police officers don't typically do it for compensation. They do it because there's a pride in policing. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to start competing with cities of Calgary. Like, I want people to make these choices because they want to try something new or they want to do something different. I don't want to steal from one to get to another one. So really that comes with building a good culture, building a good human resource kind of structure that lets us bring in the right people that are going to actually treat all Albertans equally. You know, it's funny, I'll go off on tangent just a little bit. I was thinking a little bit about my 30 years in policing, and it was very rarely that you talked much about what uniform you wore. You talked more about helping people. You talked about safety, security. So whether you're an RCMP officer or a city police officer of Calgary or Edmonton, or whatever that is, I would tell you that our biggest commodity in Alberta is our people, is the 5 million people that live here now. And you know, it doesn't really matter what uniform you wear. I'm going to work collaboratively with the RCMP. I'll support the RCMP. I'll support the Calgary Police Service, because we all have the same cause here. And the cause is to make sure that our commodity, Albertans, are taken care of. And that's my motive. So we're going to try and do recruiting. We're going to try retention traditional ways, but we're also going to try some different things. And I think my strength in my past is trying to be more inspirational, not as traditional. And you just got to know my journey to understand that. Maybe one day we'll have a talk about that.
Thank you. And we have time for one last question. We'll go to the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Your first question comes from the line of Chris Varco with the Calgary Herald. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is a question for the Premier. Premier, LNG Canada started up and loaded their first cargo earlier this week. What will it mean for Alberta and the Alberta energy sector to see LNG developments proceed? And what steps is Alberta taking with BC to see more plants built?
I think that it's going to be transformative, and I'm very happy for British Columbia, because I think that all of the product that's going to be loaded on is British Columbia product. That's terrific, because they've been relying on Alberta to get their product to market. There's 5 BCF a day that come through our province en route to the United States. So maybe that will give a new destination for BC product and allow us to backfill. Also, as more projects get developed, we just have a couple of different interconnections that we need to build in order to ensure that we've got new access to our markets as well. And on top of that, as you know, our petrochemical incentive program, as well as the work that we're doing on AI data centers, that gives us new opportunities to use natural gas in new ways as well. So I think that this really is a recalibration that happened after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And a lot of our international partners realized that they wanted to have more reliable suppliers. So I think this is a really good day for British Columbia. It's a good day for Canada, and we're cheering on more development like this.
You've talked in the past about wanting to get a new oil pipeline built to the BC coast, although Premier Edie seems less enthusiastic about that goal. Does a successful LNG project have any impact on helping Alberta make the case to British Columbia or to Ottawa for a new oil export pipeline?
I would say that I have watched over the years as the sentiments in British Columbia have changed pretty dramatically, even under a new Democratic leadership, that it's, we've had 30 years where it's been difficult to get anything approved, whether it's a mining operation or pipeline operation. And I think that the issue of social acceptability has changed over time, and that's good, because I think there's a very good argument to be made about why we need to have an all-of-the-above approach. And so I think that it's encouraging to see that British Columbia is going down that path. I'm seeing encouragement as well from what we're seeing in Manitoba under NDP leader Wab Kinew. He's very much along the same lines, that it's that he wants to develop out his port access in Churchill. And we just have to ensure that we're able to get a pipeline proponent so that we can put forward a project. And I think we'll be able to make the same case as well. The issues that I would say is that there's no question that a new bitumen pipeline is the #1 project that Alberta wants to advance. There's no single project that is going to deliver more benefit to the entire country than a 1 million barrel per day bitumen pipeline generating $20 billion a year. There is no single project that I think stands to be a great anchor tenant to help facilitate the port access for all of the other things that we want to export off the Northwest BC coast. So those are the things that I'm working on. I know that there are going to be some issues that we have to identify to create an investment climate that will attract that proponent. But every single pipeline company I talk to, when we talk about all of the different options that are on the table, a Northwest BC coast bitumen pipeline is the one that is such a no-brainer. That's why we're going to be working on it.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And to our board members here, we'll take a quick group photo at the front if you want to go.